You're listening to the Brother Wade program.
Oh, yeah, this is Henry down at the delivery center here, and I want you to know that you're listening to the Brother Wade program. What do I do? I press stop? What do I press? What do I press to stop my recording here? Oh, God.
This is Jerry of Scorpio Paranormal, and you're listening to the Brother Wade program.
Oh, my, you listening to the Brother Wade program? Yes.
This is Al, and you're listening to the Brother Wade Show. It's a program he does. Now, where's that toilet paper I bought?
Ding dinker, goddamn fuck redneck fuck weird ass piece of fucking shit.
My name is Tyrone, and I always tune in to Brother Wade.
This is Vader. And you're listening to the Brother Wade program.
You're listening to Brother Wade.
My name is Zane. I'm with Food Safety, and you're listening to Brother Wade.
Hey, this is Mr. Blosh here. You're listening to Brother Wade.
Right here. You're listening to the Brother Wade program right now.
This is Tony Sorrento, and you're listening to the Brother Wade program.
Good evening. This is Count Van Wastel, and you are listening to the Brother Wade program.
You're listening to the Brother Wade program.
This is his wife. You're listening to what? Brother Wade?
My name is Lisa Kelly, and you're listening to Brother Wade.
The views on the following program are those of the host, guests, and callers. They do not reflect this network or streaming service. Welcome to the program, folks. One of our other guests called off, but just so you know, we have somebody. We always have somebody here on the Brother Wade program. Tonight, we're welcoming a good friend of mine on Facebook, Lisa Green. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So tonight's an interesting topic because I know a little bit about it. Lisa Green is a Druid, and we're talking about the real kind of Druids, which we'll find out later what we mean by that. But let's get started with this. Lisa, how did you and why did you get into this field?
Well, I was kind of at a point in my life where I felt lost. I went to several churches. They weren't for me. And a friend of mine, out of the blue one afternoon, invited me to this gathering called Beltane, which is the spring celebration. And I was hooked. I knew I'd come home.
Now, when we talk about Druid, and this is for our listening audience as well, we're not talking about like in fantasy. Well, one of the questions is, what's the difference? Is it like lore and fantasy? But when we say Druid, we're talking someone that loves nature. It's a religious sort of, kind of like Wicca, where it's a way of life, basically. I don't like using the word religion. I like saying it's a way of life. Now, what does this entail for you being a Druid? And as well as that, with the question, being a Druid, how is it different than lore and fantasy versus what it really is?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. Now, I too was an avid D&D player. I haven't played in some time, but my characters were always Druids. And they're the sages of their time. They're creators of wisdom. A lot of times they're the advisors to the kings and queens of the age. I myself, I worship nature based on the wheel of the year. I like the summer and the fall celebrations the best. Kind of lost as to what to say here. It's so much and very simple all at the same time.
Okay, what one of the questions on here is, now I know some of the answers, but again, for our listeners that may not know about this topic, what is it like being a druid? What do you do? What differences? Because a lot of people picture them as the people that made Stonehenge, or like you said in Dungeons and Dragons, turning into animals and running through the woods. I think it's a lot more than that. And I think it has its roots deep in European history, a little bit more than some people would want to admit. So what is it that you do?
Yep.
What is it that what is being a druid consist of? For our listeners that may not know or ever heard of this topic.
Well, for me, and it could vary per person. For me, I spend a lot of time outside. I have a little herb garden that my friend is helping me put together. And I worship based on the cycles of the year. And I'm still learning a lot, so forgive me if I don't give a real clear answer, because I'm still learning myself. So
yeah,
I'll do my very best.
Now, here's a question that I've often wondered about the Druid way of life. Is it kind of like the Wiccan way of life, where nature is sacred and no harm is done, and it's all about the earth being the center? Or is it a little bit more than that? Because like I said, I've always pictured Druids being of Stonehenge, knowing a lot of magic, knowing a lot more deeper into it than maybe Wicca would perceive, or what I know about Wicca. Or we've had people on here that know about Wicca. And also, the Druid way of life is kind of more nature-based. It's more getting out in the woods. It's more learning about the animals and having the animals as your friends. So, what
Exactly.
like in a day in the life of a druid, what would you do?
Well, I'm much like everyone else. I quite often, you'll find me out in my yard in my bare feet more than likely if you were to come and visit me right now.
Now,
I do.
When you say you're out in your garden, you have an herb garden. Is this like a sacred altar place? Is this a special place, or is it just a normal garden?
Well, all of the above. It's very sacred to me. It's a very meditative space. It's very sacred to me. I'm blessed that I live in a place where I can have that.
Yeah. Do you have any different kinds of animals? We see a lot in fantasy where druids would have familiars or friends like spiders and snakes and all this kind of stuff. Is that reality, or is that kind of the fantasy end of it, with all the friends of nature and being able to turn into nature and speak to trees, or is that the magic that is done?
Well, I think that is a little bit more toward the fantasy end of things. However, speaking to trees and going out for a hike, for example, or just enjoying time outside, I mean, I'm very connected to the place where I live.
Yeah. I like nature as well. As you know, I'm trying to lose weight for my wedding is coming up. And when you go into the woods and you go into these places that our good friend Joe takes me, a lot of times I'm kind of like an outsider, if you would. But I see where, I could be being watched by trees and animals and this stuff. And for our listeners, it's a different, I don't know what to call it. It's a different feeling you get when you're in nature. It's this primitive feeling.
Yeah, it's a whole different, in it, like what you experience and what I experience might be different things. But that doesn't mean it's not just as powerful for you as it is for me, even though we might believe in different ways.
Yeah, well, what I'm also trying to let our listeners know is it's a very serene, a very peaceful at times. I mean, nature can be very rough when it wants to be, but if you pick a nice day to go in the woods, maybe even a rainy day to go in the woods, and you just walk to listen and watch, it's a whole different world. It's a whole different atmosphere. It's something that most people are not used to. We're used to having the computers. We're used to having a busy life. We're used to, and the woods and the forest, everything sustains itself. Everything works together. Yes, the fly will fly into the spider's web. Yes, the cougar will hunt the deer. Yes, the bear will rummage through the berries. But what I'm saying is everything's working together. The trees are doing their job. The water is doing its job. The fish in the water and the bears and the deer and the cougars and the rabbits are all in the woods and they're doing their job. The insects are doing theirs. I don't really know how to explain it to our listeners. But do you get this feeling as well that it's a different world, or for you, that's part of it?
That is part of it for me. I mean, I'll admit I get a couple of bees in my window. My favorite place to sit in my house is where all my plants are. I even have a relationship with the couple of bees that I get flying around in here. If they don't bother me, I won't bother them.
Well, the bees are not there. The bees are not there to hurt you. They're basically there to pollinate the flowers. And if they get a path where they know they can go to the flowers and then get out again, I don't think they would bother anything in the house. I don't think bees are the type of animal that wants to bother us. They do, but it's because we're in their path. It's like we're in the road and they're driving the car. Get out of the road and that's not going to bother you. Now, for our listeners, this is a different topic today. This is a different topic than what we normally talk about. Well, we talk about anything here, but for me it's something different, and it's something very unique that Lisa does. A very unique way of life. Now, what is some of the ceremonies you were talking about, winter and summer and fall and spring? What are these ceremonies?
There are very many, and it, again, I've been what's called a solitary, most of my life until I found my teacher a few years ago now. Hopefully he's listening, but I hope that, see, it all goes back to the person who's doing the practicing. They're your main big holidays, Beltane, Samhain, which is the celebration for fall, Halloween. Beltane is the celebration for spring. Those are the ones I'm best acquainted with. That's camping weather for me, and I love it outside.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say outside, we actually mean in the woods, or what is the environment? Because outdoors to me could be downtown, it could be across town.
Well, outside for me is usually, walking around in my bare feet in my garden,
mm-hmm.
deciding what's for dinner, just like something you might do perhaps, or I don't really consider downtown as to be the outdoors because I kind of like my trees and flowers and things, but
yeah, and nature is very beautiful.
I love it every day.
Yeah, nature's very beautiful if you get a chance to go out and see it for what it really is. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, I don't understand. I don't know how this is done. I don't know why. A lot of people don't understand the purpose that me and you understand. I feel that a lot of people also don't take in what they should. It is a lot of different things. It's a lot of different ways of doing things. For instance, you may go outside to see it and worship, or attune yourself spiritually to it, where I may go out in the woods to go for a hike or take pictures or whatever. It's also for our listeners. For you, it's something more. The feeling is more, I guess you would say, when you do it than as far as when I do it. Now, what are some of these holidays? What do you do on these holidays? Let's get into some of this for our listeners so that we can see the uniqueness of this way of life.
Well, my favorite time of year is probably Beltane. You see, it's kind of a toss-up for me between Beltane and Samhain, and I'll explain. Samhain, now we dance around something that's called the maypole. It was a dance between the men and women in a village. That's how they would find their mates a lot of times, is there was ribbon involved. It's kind of hard to explain what's in my head.
All right, take your time. I realize, and for people that are listening, the pauses is because she's thinking, and it's something spiritual and special for you. Now, what are these? See, you say Samhain, and I might know a little bit about it, but I don't know if the other people would know about it. So, what are these holidays? What time of year are they? What do you do during them? And my question is, are they the same as the other holidays? For instance, Christmas. Everybody knows Christmas is a pagan holiday, or it can be. Halloween is a pagan holiday. Does the Druid Way of Life have that as well, where we've kind of mixed everything together, and maybe we took a little bit from you? I believe the Yule log is something that they did, and I believe decorating trees and stuff is something that the Druid community did. Are they like those, or is there other holidays that we have that are, like Easter, for instance? I believe that is a Druid type holiday with Esther and the eggs and everything. However, I'm not sure how that all got in there, turning into Easter hunting and a rabbit at the mall. But, holidays like that stuff, what is done, what do we see, what do we do? I think it's very interesting, a lot of people's holidays and how they do the worship and the ceremonies. So what is part of this?
Well, I'm a very strong believer in the fact that it comes right back down to the person who's practicing it. I mean, it might be different for me as compared to you, for example. You might want to do something a little different. But the standard Easter, for example, how to explain this?
Well, what do you do on these holidays? Do you have meals? Our listening, I know a little bit about the stuff, but more for our listener audience who may not know what exactly we're talking about, because a lot of people do not know the seriousness and the spirituality and the Druid lifestyle and religion like you and I do. You guys have meals. I know there's a feast. I forgot what time of year it is.
Well, it can be for any of the holidays, for that matter. I'm always one to cook for the bigger holidays. Beltane and.
So what is Beltane? I've never heard of Beltane. What is Beltane?
Beltane is a celebration for spring.
Okay. And that happens at the same time of year every year, or is it different?
It's the first part of May.
Mm-hmm.
And it has a lot to do with fertility.
Now you guys don't do sexual rituals and running around in circles naked like the Wiccans do and stuff. And I apologize for saying it that way, but I've heard a lot of Druids will dance around naked, and there's another day.
Some of them will.
There's another holiday. I forgot which one it was, but it's where the great white stag from Dungeons and Dragons was taken from. Great deer will come in, and there's also one, I forgot the monster. It resembles a huge wolf with a big deer antlers coming out of him. He's part wolf, part human, part, elk or deer or something.
Sounds familiar.
I'm forgetting what these things are called. I learned about them a long time ago.
Yeah,
it's been a while.
I forget too. I can see it. I can see it in my head, but
the Wendigo or something, but that's Native American, but it's just like that. And here's another question. Here's something, since we're on this topic. What about the Druids of the British Isles and stuff, and the ones that might have made Stonehenge? What are these guys the same as the ones that are celebrating Wicker Man and all of this, and running around in white robes? And I guess at that time there was females, but it was more of a male type. The ritual with the right robes. Is any of that really true, or did people make this stuff up to just make folklore better?
I don't think it's made up at all.
Did they make up the great white stag in the woods as a story where maybe there wasn't a real god, it came down as a stag? You know what I mean? And a stag, by the way, is a male deer, or elk, actually. A lot of these stories have animals with them. They have principles of nature with it.
Well, it's... How can I explain this? There's also a female deer.
Okay.
To go with the male stag.
I never knew that.
During the springtime in particular. The rituals have to do with the May King and the May Queen. And they're quite often in like the costume for the May King and Queen. It has to do with, just like what you said, the white robes and the antlers
and isn't there some kind of god or goddess or something? I was told it was goddess. That the Christmas Carol kind of influenced itself into. They said no, it was Kris Kringle, but remember the spirit of Christmas Present, the big jolly bearded guy? I was told that was influenced by a Druid type deity, and so was the Santa Claus, Saint Nicholas, that goes along with that. And it came from Britain, I believe, or Ireland, or one of those, where this gentleman or figure, if you would, or female, would come and bless the villagers with food, because that's why they showed Tiny Tim eating and everything. And there would be a big meal where everybody would drink and be jolly. And that's where we get the jolly old Saint Nick from. Do you know anything that's related to that? Is that part of it? Is the wreath around his head part of it? I know some symbolism says it was Jesus Christ. That's why St. Nicholas wore one. However, I was told, no, it's a crown of some kind of berry plant, which is a holiday of Christmas and drinking and stuff. And that's where the pudding, some kind of pudding, is presented at that time, too, during this feast.
Figgy pudding.
Yeah. It's, what... Is all of that something to do with it, or is this stuff made up? Because I always thought Christmas had more of a Druidic feel to it, or a nature type feel to it. The gift, well, in the Wiccan tradition, in the Pagan tradition, it was a virgin, with the Yule log and stuff. But the Druids would throw food out to the animals, basically worshipping the winter animals, the white rabbits and the deer that were still there. And the pagans would sacrifice a virgin. What they would do is throw a virgin out in the snow in the woods, and they believed that the gods of the woods, because darkness was coming, the change of season was coming, and the night and darkness would take the virgin as a sacrifice. Now, we all know either somebody took her. We learned that from the Game of Thrones, that if something is sacrificed, somebody else will take it, and it's not sacrificed, or she probably would have froze to death, unfortunately. But is any of that in truth with the Druids?
I would believe the ghost. If I had to pick one, if you asked me to pick one, and one of the examples you just gave me, I'd have to go with the Ghost of Christmas Present.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that story, and I wish I had my teacher's book, I believe that story came right out of Ireland.
Now, is Ireland or Britain really part of the Druids? Because I believe they're up in Greenland, Iceland. There's even some Druid stuff in Russia. I mean, I hate to say the word Russia now, but there's even stuff in India that pertains to some Druidic type ceremonies. Is it just in the British Isles, or is Druid everywhere?
There's Druids everywhere, and you'd never know it. They aren't those ones, forgive me, but they aren't those ones on Sundays that come banging on your door saying, "Oh, would you like to learn about the goddess today?" No. Big no.
Well, they might get more followers.
Well, perhaps, but
I sure would listen to the person telling me the goddess or telling me something. I would probably listen to them. It'd be probably interesting to me. But here's
I would too.
Here's another question. Why don't you hear much about Druids? This brings me to the question that I have here. One of them that we were going to get into a little bit. By the way, folks, phone lines are open, 607-238-3816. My email, cwlawrence01@gmail.com, and my website, www.iambrotherwade.com. The question is, why do you not do that? Why is, just like Wicca and Pagan, why is the Druid religion not publicized? It's not thrown out there in public more. It's more secretive and solitary. And I'm not trying to make fun of anybody when I say this, but it's kind of like it's mine and mine only type feeling. Want to do this and that's it. Why is it that way? Is there a reason it's that way?
Well, many years ago, they were persecuted. Now, this is back in the days you were probably hearing about Druid, black robed figures and Stonehenge and they were persecuted for a very long time, and they kept to themselves after that because there was no free place for them to worship the way they chose.
Now, why? What was the reason they were persecuted? I mean, somebody that is peaceful and loving and caring about nature, I would think people would want them around. I would think people would leave them alone.
Well, a lot of people did, but there were people, sadly, I'll report there are Christians that didn't and didn't believe that way, and their way was the right way, and that was the only way, and that was all there was to it, and
well, sadly, they've done a lot of stuff. Sadly, the church, as in the, Not necessarily the religion of Christianity, but the church and the powers to be, so to speak, the heads up, the ones that ran the show. They did a lot of cruel things to a lot of people. We hear stories of Romans sending people to the lions, but the church would go out and ask if you're going to bow down and worship, and when you said no, they drove a sword through you. Or they would torture you or burn you at the stake, which I don't understand how that's going to solve a thing. Putting somebody, tying them to a stake and setting them on fire, I don't know how that's biblical at all. I really don't. And a lot of this burning at the stake reminds me of ritual sacrifice and demonic worship more than it does a church setting, more than godliness, if you can say it that way. And I haven't found it in the Bible yet. It says to put a witch to death, but Jesus does say in the New Testament, and I apologize for getting into religion here, but I'm saying it for our listeners. He does say to respect your neighbor and to be friends with everybody. He doesn't tell you to go out there and torture them and burn them at the stake. If anything, you're to tell them goodbye and I want nothing to do with you and don't speak to them anymore. Cast them away. That doesn't mean to kill them. That means to say, okay, goodbye, and don't help them anymore. Don't associate. And sadly today, I don't know in the Druid community, but I know in the Pagan community, there's a lot of arguments between the two groups. Unfortunately, neither one is getting any more people, if you know what I mean.
Yep, I know exactly what you mean.
And it's very sad in today's world that with all the things that we could argue about, especially with what's in the news today, like literally today in the news, that we're going to argue about what God is better than the other one. Or we're going to argue about who dances in a circle naked and why they can and can't do it. They're not bothering anybody. And even if they were bothering anybody, they're only bothering their own people because their own people were invited to the event. So I don't understand. Now, do the Druids or Druid religion, does it have an outreach sort of thing where people can get involved, where people can become it if they want to? Or is it a solitary thing all the way around and you do what you want to? There is no, other than the holidays or ceremonies, there is no correct and wrong way to do it.
Well, a little about my experience here. I was kind of wandering around lost. Didn't feel like I belonged in a church. And just one afternoon out of the blue, my friend invites me to this gathering for Beltane. And so I was like, okay, I'll go. And there was an abundance of different paths there. I guess it's kind of like fishing. You just have to know where to go. I had to learn where to go. And I found my teacher, who is still a very dear friend of mine, and hopefully he's listening.
Now, when you say teacher...
But I'm not sure that he's home yet.
Now, when you say teacher, this is actually a person, a mentor, somebody who's teaching you this, or is just a good friend that kind of like a church friend that will help you when you need it?
It's both things.
Now, for our listening audience, how would one get involved in this stuff? Is there a website? Is there groups to go to? Where does one find this stuff? Because I wouldn't know where to start. I honestly don't. You're one of, I think, what's his name is into something like this, but you're the only one on my Facebook that I know of that does this, that has this religion or this way of life, I call it. How would one that's listening and says, "Oh, this is something I would like. I had the same experience. Churches or the Christian religion is just not right." Unfortunately, people think that, and unfortunately, the churches and the organizations and groups do stuff to make us not want to be a part of it anymore. I fell away for a little while, and I was brought right back, but a lot of people aren't, and it's not wrong and it's not right. But how would one get information? How would one start? How would one, do they contact you or him or?
Well, I think that wow, it's a big question.
Well, I'm just worried that somebody's listening today and they're going to say, "Hey, I like this. This is exactly what I feel." And I'm kind of lost on where to go with this stuff. I have questions based on my curiosity only today, and getting to know what this way of life is. And because you're a friend on Facebook, of course. But I wouldn't know where to go. I wouldn't know what to look up. And when I looked up some stuff about Druids, I did not get anything on holidays or ceremonies, or area groups, or national groups, or advocates, or teachers, or like you said, is it secret?
They are there.
Or is it secret and this persecution, or however you say that word, the dislike of these religions and people is so bad still to this day that they're not going to come out of the woodwork, only for those who they believe are okay. And it's very sad to say that, very sad to say that. Like I said, in today's world with everything going on, pick something different to be mad at. Pick something different to go after. And the second part of this is, what do they do when they find this person? How do they talk to them? How would I walk up to a Druid and say, "Hey, I want to be like you"? I mean, I probably wouldn't word it that way, but that's,
That's,
It's kind of like the bagel making people in New York City. Only another person that makes bagels will understand the troubles of making bagels. But if I wanted to go in the bagel business, how would, you know what I mean? It's...
Yeah, I understand that.
Or is it better to do it solitary? Or is it better to do it that way, and then you don't find criticism and troubles and stuff?
Well, after I went to this gathering, the first one I'd ever gone to, I kind of knew who my teacher was going to be, even then.
Now, did you just get a gut feeling?
We had met up.
Or did something tell you? Or did they come up to you?
Well,
because for me, that would be very creepy if I went to something for the first time and somebody came up and said, "I'm going to teach you the ways." I'd be a little on edge and lenient of that.
Yeah, I would not. Yeah, I don't think I'd like that either. This was over probably a couple of months later, more toward the summer solstice, when we actually met and started my teacher's quite the talented artist, and he was working on a drawing, and I asked him what it was, and he said it's a druid for my D&D campaign. and then we started talking about Druids, and the rest is history.
Now, we keep going back to this dungeon.
It just kind of...
Yeah.
I knew nothing either.
We keep going back to Dungeons and Dragons, so let's tell our listeners now. And please fill in where you want to here, because I'm not too much on that character class, but I know about it, obviously. I collect Dungeons and Dragons, and if you look behind me right now on my shelf, every single edition from 1974 sits there.
Nice.
In Dungeons and Dragons, a druid basically is a religious ranger, and a ranger is somebody who is a woodland type person, Robin Hood maybe, even though I would say Robin Hood was more of a thief or rogue, what they call it. But a druid in other games such as Palladium and Exalted and Pathfinder. Oh, I hate even saying that word, but anyways, it's a game. Nice game. I played it twice. Anyways, it's a game, and even in Mage, the Dark Ages, we have some. And in the Mage game by White Wolf, we have a lot of nature-type based magic. It's somebody who calls upon nature for their powers, who demonstrates the powers of nature and protects nature. I guess it would be a guard for nature, or a naturalist, I guess you would call it, in today's world, with a flair for magic. And the magic they do only comes from the earth. It's a natural form of magic, animals, plants, weather, and it's primarily outdoorsy stuff. Now, if I'm not mistaken here, now correct me if I am mistaken with this, the druid comes under the cleric class and is more of a religious type figure than it is that we're talking today. Is that correct?
Correct. What I've got here in front of me.
And by the way, we have to play Dungeons and Dragons sometime. I'm trying to put together a Dungeons and Dragons game now. I'm thinking of it.
Of course.
I'm trying, but what I'm trying to tell you, the listeners, is I'm trying to give you an example of why we keep bringing this up, because it's a very unique way of life and a very unique thing. So you have your character in front of you, I assume, correct?
Well, not exactly. I'm sitting in front of my little laptop, and the best description of the history behind Ireland's Druids, which is the model everybody's seen, everybody knows about.
Yeah, I call it the British Isles lore because it goes into the Britain areas and Scotland and Ireland and a lot of...
and they're considered the higher educated tier of Celtic society, which would include poets, doctors, and spiritual leaders. Now, the experience I've had with them during, Dungeons and Dragons, it's really not that much different. But the tragedy of it is they never left any written accounts behind.
That we know of. There is some particular stuff that we think might have been.
That I'm learning about. The one in particular is called the Immaculum in the Herd, which
I'll say that
basically
again
means,
because I don't understand what you just said. That is a book, a religious article.
That is Old Irish.
That's a mouthful to say. Wow.
That's Old Irish, and it's called, I'll say it again, I'll try to slow down a little this time, the Immaculum in the Herd.
The Immaculum in the Herd.
Okay, yep.
Because what I heard was the moxicillin in her. That's what I heard. And I'm kind of thinking here, why are we putting pink medicine in somebody? But anyways. So is this a document, a book, a?
It's a book.
Now, when you say Old Irish, you're talking an old language?
Yes.
Ireland had their own language. We know that.
Yep.
What? And when we say Celtic, we're talking a little bit more than the Celtic music and all this other stuff. And somebody in our chat room said Britain has nothing to do with it. Well, yes, Druids were up in Britain. It went all through that, and it went up to Greenland and Iceland. There's even some accounts of Vikings being Druid.
Oh yeah, it's. Have you ever seen the TV show?
Which one?
The Vikings.
Yeah, I have. I have seen it, and two of their symbols are Celtic. They're not even Viking. That was basically an Irish Celtic symbol they used in that show. Mm-hmm. It just amazed me when I saw it. I'm like, whoa. And the way they fought with the jumping in the air and all that stuff was kind of like the Highlander. They were called Highlanders, and they fought like that. They did that to make themselves larger. They did that to fight quickly. They were the ones that fought with the two-handed claymores.
Yep.
If I'm not mistaken, they're also ones that they would also fight naked. They mixed that up with the Vikings. The Vikings did not fight naked because they didn't want to get hurt. But they were berserkers that did. But I'm talking about regular, Norwegian there. Norway's another country of Vikings that we forget. I forgot the other country. It's up in Russia. Somewhere up in Russia, there is not Holland, the other side there. They have some roots in Druid too. And if you put all of it in like a huge, I don't know what you would call it, an S shape, like a figure 8 shape, in that side of the world, it kind of all goes together. Kind of like a big P around the British Isles and up through that area. Which the show did not do. The show, I don't think the show showed the truth of Vikings, if you know what I mean. Were you a big...
Yeah, I think they sugar-coated it.
Were you a big fan of that?
I love that show.
And the one thing I'm thankful they didn't do is put them in big horned helmets and make them run around with big axes, because that might not have been Viking at all. The helmets the Vikings used were the ones that came over their nose, which I would think if you got hit in the head with one of those things, you'd break your nose. The metal would slam against your nose, and there goes the bridge of your nose, and there goes your eyes. Now, is that still running? Is that still a History Channel show, or did they end it?
I think they ended it.
Because they have a new one, Valhalla, Viking Valhalla.
Yeah, I heard about that, but I haven't seen it.
It's all right if you don't mind the religious spirituality to it all, and you don't. And the story I don't understand. He wanted to go on a boat, and never something about he made a boat. I don't really And another one that had Vikings in it was the King Arthur movie. I believe it was the same guy that starred in The Gladiator. They fought with a group of Saxons, which a lot of people don't realize. The people in England were not British. They were not English. They were called Saxons at that time of era. And they fought Druids. Are you familiar with that movie?
Not so much, I'm afraid.
It's the modern King Arthur. It's called King Arthur. I recommend it.
Charlie Hunnam in it?
I don't know who it was, but they fought them. They were the ones that were painted. They were basically naked. That's how they would fight. But for the movie, they were wearing clothes. And the gentleman who walks up to him that looks like a huge Merlin guy, he might have been Druid. And there was another one I'm thinking of. What was it? Oh, I've seen it 1,000.
I have a guess on that one.
It was 13 something. Warriors 13 something. He fought Druids. Or helped Druids fight these berserker guys. The 13th warrior, that's it. He, in that movie, helped a group of Druids fight some berserkers. And I believe the episode of Xena, Warrior Princess, one of two of those, depicted Druids as well. And wasn't her friend a Druid or something? Or some kind of a character like that?
I've only seen a couple of those episodes, so I'm not really sure.
Trying to think of the other one. What was the other one?
Well, the one that comes to mind for me is Lord of the Rings.
Now, how is that Druid? That is elves.
Well, in one of the movies, I believe it was the first one, before they knew about the ring and what was going on with the ring and
The Hobbit?
all of that.
The Hobbit? That was the first one.
Well,
if we're talking about J.R. Tolkien's stuff, the Silmarillion, that has a lot of Druid and Viking stuff in it too, taken right from it.
Yep.
He made his elves, I think, after the pagan Druid religious end of it all. Dwarves were, I think, a Viking or something natured. And because the ceremony at the well, or the water, the one where she was standing at that bird feeder or whatever it is, Gradriel or whatever her name is, that's a Druid ceremony. That's a Druidic ceremony that she was doing for them. What was the other book he wrote? There was a fifth book in there.
Oh, I can't think of it. Fellowship of the Ring.
Fellowship of the Rings was 3 of them. The Towers.
Was the first one, I think.
Return of the King. The Hobbit was the very first one. The Silmarillion fell in the middle of somewhere in the Lord of the Rings. It was history, more or less. And then he had another one that was kind of a different story type. I think it was a collection of short stories, but that's my personal opinion. The Druid of Shahara, or however you say that word, is an excellent Druid type reading too for fantasy, by Brooks or whatever his name, Terry Brooks. I don't know if you're familiar with him. Now, this brings up the other point of this religion is why is it not in the limelight in today's world with all the internet and computers or, recently television. We did have television at one time. Why wasn't it put in the media of any sort? Why don't groups come to festivals and stuff?
There were no records kept.
Well, I'm saying, could that be changed now in the era of information? Or is that just a traditional thing that you do? Because the pagan community is suffering because of that religion. The pagan community is suffering because a lot of people are not joining. A lot of people are not coming forward. Or if they are, they're secretive, like yourself. And in my opinion, that's a downfall for something that wants to spread and be known, is if everybody's secretive. The downside of this is, now nothing's wrong with it for you, but if somebody was that way and they wanted to know other stuff, like one of our listeners or something, the downside is the people that are solitary are not going to be meeting in meetings other than ceremonial or holiday functions. Is there groups for people to join? Is there festival schedules and holiday schedules that you can go to? Because you said you were invited to a meeting.
There are. I know of a particular group, the same group where I went and I discovered Druidism. I just want to make sure I answer the question right.
Well, my main thought is if somebody's listening tonight, what would they do so they can get with other people like themselves? Because I've never heard of any groups in my area of Druids. I wouldn't know if somebody was or not, if my neighbor was or not. But the concern is if there's somebody who wants to become one and wants help, like find a teacher like you have, how would they go about doing this? Is there any groups to join, places online? I know there's Facebook groups. There's two of them that I've joined, but they're not really for Druid, but they are for, other beliefs.
Well, there are in the age of information, I'm quite a big fan. One of the first books I ever read was simply called The Druids, and it gave a brief history of the Druids, where they started. There's a gorgeous picture of Stonehenge on the front. I mean, there's people that say that you should start with your senses.
Now, how would one know that they're a Druid? How would one... Is it a feeling you get? You said something told you. Is this a spiritual communication, a gut feeling?
Well,
they'll just know.
When I went to this particular gathering, I felt drawn to it. Like I knew there was something going on, but I couldn't quite put my finger on what it was at the time. But me and this particular young gentleman, I found out that I took a lot of the same workshops because these festivals are usually held on weekends when most people can come to them, and there's a number of workshops that you can take on many different subjects.
Now, when you say workshops, you mean a group of lessons and all that stuff, right?
Right.
And these festivals, do they cost money? Do they?
Yep.
I mean.
Well, they do, but they're fairly inexpensive. I mean, I can remember, I think, now this is meals included, I think I paid $40 for the whole weekend.
Now, what are the meals? They have their own, or is it everybody pitches in, like a LARP gathering? We all kind of pitch in to help each other, so nobody ever has to spend anything.
Well, a lot of the times it's bring a dish.
So everybody brings vanilla wafers and banana pudding, right?
Well, there's been all kinds of...
I've always liked to give money rather than bread a dish because I don't ever know what to bring. My friend, he brings vanilla wafers and pudding and bananas. So that's where that joke comes from. And if you're listening, you know who you are. And I hope he's listening tonight. Because I can't see the Facebook chat room, so my resources are limited on looking in the chat room tonight. But we do have our YouNow chat room up. Now, you were saying that... What, are these things held monthly, weekly, bi-monthly?
Well, it depends on the time of year. It's usually when the weather is nice, but I can remember a particular year that all it did was rain and there was mud everywhere. And
nothing wrong with that. I like rainy days.
Well, that was a little much.
Now, did they plan it that way for a festival, or did they just happen to have it that way? Because if they're nature worshippers, they can worship the rain.
We called it mud pain.
Mud pain, huh?
Yep.
Well, now you know how I feel when we have to take down carnival rides and that stuff, and dig trucks out of the holes of mud. But okay, here's an interesting question for you, and I hope you can answer this. When they have these events, if everybody's solitary like yourself,
no.
What do you guys kind of do? I mean, does everybody meet for the holiday that's happening, or do you meet to network with each other, or is it ceremonial type, or is it to get new members? Like you would bring me, or somebody else that's never been, or something, and then if everybody brought a friend, you know what I mean? What?
Yeah. The answer to that question is yes.
I don't know how good I would do at one of these things, but...
Well, It's usually camping. It's usually.
I would do horrible. I have to have, unless somebody lets me have an RV for the day, I cannot camp. I don't understand camping at all. There's no TV, no computers, there's no bathrooms, there's no showers, there's nothing to do. You know, anybody that camps is a better person than me, I'll tell you that much.
Well, there are, it's usually quite well planned, and they literally start, like, say, Beltane, for example. They literally will start advertising for next year after this year's over, about a week after, so they can get, you know, presenters for their workshops, they can get vendors, they can get a campground that's agreeable by everybody.
Well, how did I mean that in itself probably is the trick, getting somewhere where everybody's going to be happy camping. Because last time I went camping, the person next to us on both sides of us snored, and you can hear people snoring. You can see things flying around that I could not identify as a bat or anything. It just flew around. There were bugs all over the place. And every time you went out to go to the bathroom in the wooded area there, because I certainly wasn't walking up the path to go to the bathroom, there would be spiders hanging around me. And I kept hearing rustling in the grass, not the bushes and stuff, but in the grass itself, under the picnic table and everything. And I kept thinking I was going to be eaten by snakes. So I had to sleep through that. Then in the morning, everybody's up, and all you smell is bacon and burning wood. That was my last camping experience. I don't remember anything else because I don't think we did anything else. And unfortunately, we paid $50 to go. Everybody paid $50, all four of us. So, I don't really understand camping. But this brings up an interesting question. When you said agreeable, does everybody get to fill out a survey on what they want to do and they just do it? Or is it an organization that puts it on? Or is it just a group of people saying, let's go?
It's more of an organization that puts it on. I would say before I moved back up here, I haven't had as much contact as I did because I haven't found anybody here except my teacher. He kind of followed me from Virginia because that's where I came from before I moved here. But the best thing I could say is if somebody wants to follow the Druid path or thinks they want to follow the Druid path, put on whatever clothes that's appropriate for the weather and get outside.
So the nature base of this way of life is really deep. For our listeners, I understand that part. I might not like camping, but I do like hiking, and I like hiking in places where I can see nature. I don't want to go on a hike at our local park down there where you just see a playground and a bunch of people parking their cars. I want to go to, they call it Jones Park, our state park, our other state park, county park, whatever it is. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's a private park. But anyways, they have, nature. Nature is at its best. And that's what I like. I like learning. I like seeing things you don't see. The one part that I just put up on my TikTok and my YouTube, Lily Lake, we went up there to do a paranormal investigation of elementals. I'm sure you're familiar with those. And we're still trying to go over some evidence, but it's called Lily Lake, and the lake is named for its lilies. It has massive amounts of lily pads and massive amounts of lake water plant life. But they have beavers. They have something that looks like an otter, might be a muskrat or something. It's always seen out there. The deer come down to drink. Some people said they've seen bear drinking. Fishing. There's large. Every time I've gone, there's large splashes in the water. You see large dragonflies, large bees. Hornets are big. Wasps are big. Ladybugs. We've seen frogs and toads and lizards. I don't know if they're called salamanders. Maybe you would know. What are these orange lizards? Salamanders?
I would call them salamanders.
Yeah, they're always around. Giant spiders, large spiders. I've taken a few pictures and posted them on my Facebook of nature, my nature photography. I love doing nature photography because it's just nice to see. And it's nice to have afterwards. And I've even gone in the rain with an umbrella, which was a nightmare. Well, you ever walk through the woods with an umbrella? It's a nightmare. But it's nature. And I understand that. But for the listeners today that may not understand this, like I said in the beginning, it's a different feeling. It's like you lose the world for a moment. I don't have to worry about my cell phone. The signals are bad out there. I don't have to worry about any work. I don't have to worry about the show. I don't have to worry about our podcast. I don't have to worry about anything that's going on. I just enjoy the moment for the moment. And nature's going to bring you stuff to keep you occupied anyways. So if you can't find something out there, then go home because you're really not into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Lisa, I'm sure you can agree with me that you're going to find something and see stuff. Every time you go out, it's going to be something new. It's never, for me, it's never a repeated thing. Yes, walking up the hills. Walking down hills is the hardest for me. Walking up hills ain't that bad. Walking down the hill is. But other than the path itself, which sometimes there's trees across it that have fallen, or the water rose in the rain and washed the mud across it, or, unfortunately people leave little blue doggy bags around in certain areas. I guess they come and clean them up, which I don't understand that one bit. But anyways, the animal wildlife is good. The plant wildlife is different every time. It seems like the trees are shaped differently or facing a different direction or something. And I don't know if trees can turn around or not, but I swear there's one tree, it's in a different position every time I go, in a different spot every time I go. I swear to it. I should put a video camera on it and walk around the place and come back and see if this thing moves, because it's amazing. And I don't know if you're familiar with the colors of the trees and stuff, the leaves, but there's some trees that have different colors and different shades, even though it's not fall. And it's
right.
Beautiful. It's different. And the water itself, I could stare in the water and watch I don't know if they're tadpoles or baby catfish or what they are, leeches or something in the water that fascinates me. And I'm, I might be a big, powerful, macho guy here, but whatever's in that water fascinates me, and I don't go near the water to find out either, okay? I have put a stick in the water to see if something latched onto it, but nothing did. But I'll be damned if I'm going to go near that water. I walk about 3 feet away from it. It worries me, but whatever's in that water is swimming around, and it just fascinates me. It'll follow us. I don't know if snakes live in water, but if a snake is that big, it would have to be a python, and I would think here in New York, when the winter comes, that thing is going to die. If it is a gator or something, it's probably going to perish in the winter too. But whatever it is, it's big. I don't know if sturgeon would be in the water. I'm not sure if sturgeons would live. I don't know how big the catfish get. It might even be a big catfish.
Well, It depends.
It's not a beaver. It's not a muskrat. I don't think it's a mammal of any sort. I don't think there's any large salamanders in there. We've been up there in the fall when it was cold. So whatever it is, it can be in the fall cold water. Now, do you go out in the winter?
Well, I don't as much as I should probably.
And the only thing wrong with winter is it's cold. I don't mind the snow as long as it's not cold. However, if it's warm outside and there's snow on the ground, we're in some nuclear disaster, and I shouldn't be outside at all. So, now, do you find, now that we're on the topic of being out in nature, interesting thing to talk about, that if people want to get into the paranormal or the weirdness of nature here, do you ever feel that the trees are following you, or they're speaking, or that you're being watched, or this really eerie feeling like something's watching you and trying to talk to you, but you can't hear anything, you can't see anything, nothing's different, but you're getting this feeling like something knows you're there or following you at all times?
Yeah, I get that every day. I wouldn't call it eerie, though. It's more comforting.
No, this feeling is eerie. This is very eerie. Like, I got to turn around, or I got to leave, and once in a while it'll come upon me, and then it'll be gone. Like, really gone, like that area. But it's in different spots, so I know it's not a certain area. I know it's not, what do you call it, a situational thing. I'm normally calm when it happens, so it's not my anxiety acting up, or whatever your body does when you're in nature, because my body acts a little different than it does in the city. I could walk down the downtown area here and, oh, okay, I'm outside, but when you're walking in the woods, it's a little different.
Yeah, it's always different in the woods.
Now, what wildlife do you have out there? The most I've seen is deer. I've seen what they said was the back of a beaver. I've seen muskrats. I've seen opossums in the daytime too. I've seen a skunk in the daytime, like in the evening, kind of, 4 or 5 at nightish. I thought I saw a porcupine one time walking around. I've seen a lot of things in trees, birds. I've never seen an owl. When we were up in the Adirondacks, I saw a bald eagle, and I saw a loon, which was very fascinating. We tried to go see moose. We couldn't do it. We tried to go see bear. There was none. So what kind of fox? I was followed by a fox once. Of course, I've seen Bigfoot. So what kind of wildlife do you like or seen? And we all seen rabbits and chipmunks too, but I assume they're everywhere.
Think I've seen a lot of deer. I often wake up with them underneath my window. A lot of turkeys. I seem to have ravens flocking around me all the time, and my brother too. Now I've actually ridden an elephant.
In the wild, in the woods.
Well, it was at a circus many years ago, but not quite the same.
What kind of elephant was it? Asian, African?
African, I believe. I didn't really think to ask at the time.
Male or female?
Male.
Male elephant?
Yep.
That's pretty unique, having a male African elephant. What circus was it?
I just remember there were a group that put on the circus for people of lower income so they could enjoy it too.
What is it, like a Shriners or something? Shrine circus?
Something like that, yeah.
At the arena or a tent or?
Well, they actually, behind my house at the time, they rented out the whole park.
What color was the tent? Was it big? If it was a tent, was it big white and red? Because that would have been Carson and Barnes.
Mm-hmm.
Big, huge 5-ring circus was Carson and Barnes. Trying to think of what circus had male elephants that were active. Because having a male elephant on the road is very hard. Because if they go into musk or they cause problems, or you can't really put them with the females, because if you do, they're going to want to mate. And then if you deny them mating, there's a problem. And a lot of females get nervous with the males around because the males in the wild are very unpredictable. However, in the circus, you are there to control them and make sure they behave. So that's not the problem, but the female elephants still have this really weird demeanor about them about it. So that's pretty interesting. Any other animals, giraffes and zebras and camels and all that stuff?
Yep, I've seen all of those.
Now
I've been very lucky.
What
actually.
animals do you have in the woods there? Is there any special?
Nothing terribly special. I think there might be a couple of bears around, but other than that, I haven't seen anything.
I don't know what I would do if I saw a bear. See, well, I'm not worried about it. I'm not. And most people tell me the bears that are around in my area are very small. I've seen bears in zoos that are huge. Kodiak bears, grizzly. I've never seen a grizzly in a zoo. I've seen Kodiak. I've seen black bears, of course. Sun bears. Polar bears. Which polar bears don't look too frightening to me. They kind of look like they're sleepy and docile, to be honest with you. But I certainly am not going to climb in the enclosure to find out. You have cougar.
I don't think I've seen one.
Any bobcats?
Bobcat, maybe.
On our, what would it be? I think it would be the northwestern side of town, maybe. That avenue type, lane type thing over there. It runs by the river. Anyways, there's 2 bobcats over there I've seen at night. Which kind of worries me because I've heard bobcats will go after pets. I'm not sure if they will or not, but now when you go out in the woods, do you have a plan? Do you have? Because my friend Joe said always have a plan of where you're going and when you're coming back, or do you just go for the fun of it and hope for the best?
Well, sometimes I have a plan and sometimes I don't.
How do you go?
It all depends on what kind of day I'm having.
Do you go randomly, or do you plan it for a park that day, or? Was that a scanner in the background I hear?
Yep.
Police scanner, right? Or is that a fireman, or is that a fire call?
I think that's a fire.
There are tones for something, but if it's 2 tones, up to 2 tones can be for the police. Anything after that's probably ambulance or fire, I would say. At least that is in my area. Now, we have a question from the YouNow chat room here. The person wants to know what's the difference between nature with the Druids and nature with the pagan religion. It's kind of an interesting question because they both, and for the rest of our listeners, the pagan religion also has influences of nature as well as the Druid. So this is an interesting question.
Well, I'm not saying that my pagan brothers and sisters are any less in tune with nature than we are. But I found that the Druids are a little bit deeper into it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Well, I'm not too familiar with all of the nature stuff in the pagan religion or Wiccan religion, but I know that it has to do with being peaceful. It has to do with the spirituality of nature. It has to do with Mother Earth giving us stuff and giving back to her, or the universe, if you would, as a whole, talking about nature, giving to us and us giving back. And what's interesting about the pagan one is the pagan ones are in tune to what nature is doing as far as the earth itself. You know what I mean? Are the Druids as well? I mean, holidays of the earth turning and stuff, or?
They are. At least that's been my experience so far. I've met a few beyond my teacher, but
there's also another question here. The question is the question is asking why so much nature. And I think what the person is asking is why are you so much into the nature? Why, is it a lot of that stuff? I don't know. It just says, why so much nature?
Well, I feel very connected to it, especially out where I live. I don't have any neighbors to speak of. I'm able to wander around the backyard in my bare feet. It's pretty. I just feel very connected to it. And I think my teacher's even deeper into it than me.
Now, have you always been that way, even before you got into Druid religion?
Well, not always. I was kind of sick as a kid, so I didn't get outside as much as I would have liked, but...
Because I find I've always liked outside. I've always enjoyed going on hikes. I've always enjoyed the beautifulness of nature, the beauty that nature has, and the animals and stuff. I don't know if I'd want to camp out there. Like I said, I'm a horrible camper, or I would like to spend all of my eternity out there. But there's a part of me that says, I want to know. I want to hear a siren off in the background. I want to hear a car going by with a radio on it. I want to hear a motorcycle going by. But living out in the country, I don't think I would do too well. Like, for instance, where you are. But I find that nature is there's a side of the human being, and you can agree with me on this, that the primitive side, you gotta go out in nature once in a while. You gotta see it. You gotta almost, our ancestors lived out in the woods. As I yawn, the ancestors lived out in the woods. They lived off the land. They lived off hunting and gathering. They lived, that sort of stuff. And I think it's part of the human nature to want to experience that once in a while. That it's part of the way to relax, a part of the way to clear your mind, a part of the way to refocus. And that's what I do when I hike. I go out with a clear mind. I get rid of all the anxiety. I get rid of everything that has to do with this world. And for that time being, I'm in another world. It's almost like being on another planet sometimes, because I live the cities around me. And doing that helps me get rid of, some of the tension we have. What is it like for you living out there where you live? Is it different? Is it, the country lifestyle is a little bit different than the city lifestyle. What does that influence you at all in this, or does it help you at all?
It does. I think I was, in my particular opinion, the gods don't put things in our path except if they have a reason to. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes absolute sense. And gods, you mean, because we haven't gotten into the Druidic godly hierarchy or anything, but the powers of the universe, so to speak.
Exactly. I mean, I've been here since 2018. I'll probably be here for many years to come. I hope. I mean, I think I might have said this before, but I don't really have any neighbors. I live on the other side of a paintball range. Now, I know that sounds very...
Sounds pretty
sort of
intimidating.
weird, but...
You ever get paintballs hit in your house?
Nope.
Sounds pretty interesting. All of a sudden somebody
They're
just
far
pops
enough.
off.
They're far enough away where that's not a problem. And they don't just... They have their own... You'd have to see the way it sits down off the hill.
Mm.
I've been often curious about it myself from time to time and want to go down there and check it out, but I just haven't gotten to it yet.
I would stand there with a paintball. When I see somebody, I'd hit them off with a paintball and then be like, oops, it wasn't me. Would that ruin their game or something? Or maybe... I would be tempted to stand there with paintballs and just shoot them around them and wonder what's, I don't know. I'm one of those nasty type grievances people that, I don't know. Last time I was involved in paintball, all I know is the guy shot me in the vest with the paintballs. Number one, I didn't even feel them. That's how big of a guy I am.
Yeah.
Number two, the vest was bulky. Number three, I couldn't move around in it. And when I shot the paintballs, they just went up in the air and never came back down. So I don't know where they went to. And a few people that was around me said they got hit by my paintballs, and I wasn't aiming at them at all. So I don't know. And the guy said that I was so horrible at running and hiding that he would have hated to see me in the military. And the other person said that it's a sport I probably do not want to get into. However, I think I did very well at chasing them. And the other guy said I was trigger happy and kept running out of paintballs. And my answer was, well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to hit each other with paintballs. But I guess there's a strategy to it. I guess there's supposed to be some kind of a plan to it. I guess there's supposed to be some kind of a challenge to it, if you would say. But I didn't see any of that, so I never got in it. Plus, it's expensive. You ever hear of any wars or fighting down there, them arguing with each other and stuff?
Nope. I barely hear anything at all.
Oh. Do they use it at all, or is it just there?
They use it. I've seen people in and out of there, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming so.
Just
Though I've never actually seen it myself.
Just randomly go down there and walk and hope you don't get hit with a paintball, I guess. The movie, the show Jackass, I learned from that show that being hit with a paintball is very bad. I don't want to ever do it, but it's not going to feel nice.
Yeah, they can be quite painful, as I understand it.
That's probably why the deer sleep under your window, because they don't want to go down there. Now, when you say these deer sleep under your window, are they actually sleeping by your house under a window, or are they in a garage? Or
there's if you were to go to my kitchen sink and look out my kitchen window, which would be to your right, there's a big field behind my house, and they've gotten very close to sleeping right under my window because I can hear them snore.
Snoring, deer snore.
Yep.
Oh boy, I did not know that.
At least I think that's what it is, I hope.
Well, it could be a bear. Bears snore. I know tigers snore. I know camels make funny noises when they sleep standing up. Trying to think of how to word this. What is it like being out there with nothing around you? I mean, there's no fire department, no police, no... Isn't that a little intimidating, not having any of the services you might need? Or having to drive to the doctor's office, or drive to the store, or...
See, I confess to not going as deep into nature as I'd like sometimes, because it's the same with something else that's been on my mind of late. Paranormal Investigating. You and I have talked about that.
Yeah. I've been doing it for 21 years now. Yes, I have.
Yeah, I think you helped my aunt at one point.
Maybe. I had another friend and another friend. All three of us were talking about this. And I think I've been on over 100 cases. I mean, real good cases. Not, here and there. I mean, actual cases where it's something. And some of those cases are on my website. Some of them are on my YouTube, some of the videos from it. But I think I've done more than 100 full cases, some of them being a while on some of those. And I think I've done more than 1,000 investigations. Now, I'm saying 100 cases as in like big, influential cases, nice cases. Now, 1,000 investigations. We've investigated anywhere from the person's house to a full-blown investigation of, going to the library, researching the house, and going back there multiple times, figuring out what's going on. The one client we worked with for 4 months, we worked with the person. So these are pretty big cases. Anywheres to a graveyard, anywheres to a... I think the weirdest place I ever did was that haunted junkyard. I think that was a little odd.
Wow, I bet you that was scary.
Famous places like Rolling Hills Asylum. We've gone to Gettysburg. We've been to Salem. We've been to our local areas, hot spots. Some famous areas in our local area. Famous areas in other areas around us. I think I've been... Oh, God, what's the farthest I've been to a paranormal investigation? If you want distance-wise. Well, it would be if you want a distance-wise, probably Massachusetts, Salem. If you want in the other direction, I I don't know. I can't. Wow. New Jersey maybe was the other one. I don't know. I honestly can't answer that question. I think Salem was the largest distance that we went. As far as it was part investigation. We did an investigation there, 2 of them. Gettysburg probably was. I think that was always on edge for investigating. And the only part I don't like about Gettysburg, if you ever go to Gettysburg, Lisa, this is a warning if you ever do a paranormal investigation there. They've modernized it. So there was this group of Union soldiers who got drunk and went right into a northern soldiers camp. And of course they got caught or killed or whatever. So I told the guy, I go, where did this happen? This would be great, great history. That would be great for a paranormal investigation, okay? You have death of the soldiers, you have the other stuff, you have... It just speaks paranormal investigation. So he goes, it's up there. And so we went up there. There was a monument, that little silver-type sign or stone or whatever it was, in a parking lot for a restaurant. So that kind of put a kibosh to the paranormal investigation, because it's now the parking lot of a restaurant. But the one thing that I do recommend is going into the battlefield. You can still smell the powder from the cannons, and every 3 feet there was a body part. Now, I mean, there's like a dead body laying there. Every 3 feet there's a foot, there's a hand, there's a head, there's a shoulder, or a body. Basically, a body's laying there every 3 feet. And when you're on that field, I kept getting this urge to duck. I kept getting this urge to want to fight something or run or something. And I'm a pretty big guy. I kept getting this urge of extreme panic, if you would, maybe the feeling would be. And I have no idea why. No idea why. It's just weird. Everywhere, everywhere you would look around, there'd be, massive amounts of people died there, both on Union and Southern. The Northern and Southern, Union and Confederate, whatever it was. Other states joined too. A lot of people don't realize that. But there was this area there where the cannons were. And I said, this cannon probably blasts, the ball probably goes, out there. Probably a good 20 yards, 50 yards. I don't know. We figured it out, and I said, let's walk. So we walked. And seeing that cannon from where I stood was eerie. You got this eerie feeling about it. So whatever soldiers were there could see this cannon too. So if you imagine in your head the cannon fires, you see this big puff of smoke, and you know that ball's going to land anywhere around you. That made me nervous standing there. But I recommend it. I don't know if you've ever been to Gettysburg.
I haven't.
But I do recommend it. And there is spots there where nature is. There's beautiful under the covered bridge. I think it's called Saxon Covered Bridge. Big red covered bridge. Beautiful falls under it. Beautiful water under it. Beautiful open fields with beautiful flowers and stuff. If it wasn't so modernized, as in the modern day world has taken away from the old feeling. And I tried to stand where Lincoln stood in the graveyard there when he gave his speech, but we couldn't find it. And the graveyard is looking at tombstones of soldiers who died in the Civil War. It's kind of a sorrowful type feeling you get, knowing that you have stood somewhere in that field, somewhere in this town and village and area that I was in today. That person died here. You know what I mean? It's and knowing how the person died, knowing that this soldier probably got hit with a bullet and dropped. It's just this eerie, sorrowful feeling you get. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know. It's something that I would go back, but I hope I don't get that feeling again, because it's something I would not want to have again. But the realization that you're standing in spots where people have dropped dead. You know what I mean? I don't know if you've ever done that before, but I mean, we've gone, in hospitals before. We've all been in an emergency room at one time, but hopefully the person didn't drop dead in the emergency room I'm in. But it's a little different. It's, somebody died there. You know how they died. You know why they died. It's kind of, they were trying to fight for their way of life and freedom, or what they wanted, And the sad part of it is, they're Americans. You've stood somewhere where an American soldier dropped dead. It's eerie. I don't even know. It's just weird. It's this ungodly feeling. It kind of takes over you as you're standing out there. But I recommend it. I recommend a trip to Gettysburg. It was a very nice trip. And I'm sure there's wildlife parks out there and stuff for you, Lisa. You would love it. The wildlife.
Well, there's one place that I've always wanted to go. Waverly Hills.
That's out west, isn't it?
Kentucky.
Yeah. I went through Kentucky on a Amtrak train once, only once for a little bit.
Sorry,
They turned
there for a second.
Yeah, they turned the train around in Kentucky somehow while we were on it through the way of tracks. So we went in and then came out. But I figured it out the other day. If you don't count Louisiana, and you don't count that as being this side of the Mississippi, I've been to every state this side of the Mississippi but Wisconsin and Alabama. If you do count a little bit of Louisiana, that is on this side, I've been to every state but Louisiana, Alabama, and Wisconsin. This side of the Mississippi, I think I've been to almost half of the United States in my lifetime. Yes. Even if it was for a few minutes on a train, I still went for the state. And Kentucky does have grass that looks a different color, like it's bluish. And the Mississippi River is not all that bad.
Well,
so,
certainly been an interesting discussion.
Yes. Well, I would like to do more. I'd like to have you back. It'd be great to talk about stuff, because we will probably come up with questions and other things. How would people get in touch with you or your teacher or somebody to help them with this if they need to? Go ahead and plug what you're doing.
Well, I have emails. I wasn't really prepared to offer that information at this time.
Okay.
Until I talked to my teacher.
How would somebody get a hold of him, or if one of the listeners today says, I want to be a Druid, I want more information, how would they get a hold of anybody to help them?
Well, I'll confess I'm sitting in front of my computer and I'm not outdoors. But if you type in how to be a Druid, you will find Fathom of information on Google.
Okay.
I personally like my Druidism for Dummies book.
Okay. They have
As
one
there
for
is a
Druid.
book.
Oh, the Dummies series, I call
Yep.
it.
Yep.
I have an Idiot's Guide to Wicca.
Yeah, I have that one too.
Now, is that any good? Is that something that's relevant? Or I find a lot of those things, and those things are just something really quick and plain. Like the Dummy's Guide to Dungeons and Dragons. Didn't say a whole lot, but it's enough to understand it. If you want to get in more to it, you could.
Yeah, I love my books. I found they're great resources. There's whole, different websites you can go to.
Okay.
I just love my books. I don't know how to describe it.
Any titles of the books that you can recommend?
Well, the one that I would recommend is the Colloquy of Two Sages, which is also that big name that I rattled off earlier that you thought was something else.
Yeah.
I don't have my copy of the book. It's right in front of me, but I know it's called the Colloquy of Two Sages.
Colloquy of Two Sages.
I think it's Collaqay, I think.
Okay. And you also mentioned the Druids book earlier.
Oh, there's the Druidism for Dummies.
Yeah. No, the
It's
other
also
one.
very good.
The Druids book that you talked about earlier that you were.
Yep, that's the same. The Colloquy of Two Sages is the same book.
Okay. Pretty interesting. The book has two names to it.
Well, it actually has one name, but you'll see. I mean, you can get it for $5 or $6, not very expensive at all, and it's a great read.
I might actually have that one somewhere. I tried to, in the little time I had to prepare tonight, I tried to find my two books, but I couldn't find them. It just has a picture of a few females on the front cover, kind of raising their hands into the air for something. Very unique book, but my shelves are full of some of these type books. I have something to do with nature. It says plants and all sorts of other things and magic herbs and stuff. See, we didn't even get into the magic herbs and all that other stuff that we could get into. But
well, it's just
that's a lot of stuff we could get in for next time.
Yeah. In the magic part of it is all about intent.
Now, is it different than Wiccan magic? Is magic different than Wiccan?
Well,
real quickly here, or is it, the magic's magic?
Well, I think, in essence, a lot of it's the same.
Okay. Well, a lot of people have told me that magic is you have an intent to do it, you have an object for a focus, and then the universe does it. So it's kind of kind of a 3-section thing here, but
well, it's kind of like what's coming to mind here is describing a guy that he comes home at night and decides he doesn't like his job during the day. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, he doesn't like his job during the day, so he prays to the gods that he finds a new job, but he doesn't put in his applications anywhere or make any phone calls. He just kind of expects it to drop in his lap, and it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you have to do something to make something happen. You have to, if you want brownies, you got to mix the stuff together out of the box there and put the oil or whatever it is and the eggs and the water, I guess, and mix it together and you'll get brownies and cook it,
Yep.
Are the tools the same? Candles or is it a lot of nature related?
Well, I
Herbs
have I use candles quite a lot. But whenever I've got a candle burning, just for simple safety purposes, you should never leave it unattended. Because I had, personally, I've had incense burners catch on fire on me before.
I've never heard of that
before. I never recommend leaving it alone.
So you can't go to sleep and leave them burning overnight? So what do you do if you need the candle to burn? You just get one of those ones that are in the dollar stores in those glass containers and burn it?
Yeah, I've done that quite often.
Well, you're supposed they're paraffin wax.
I make sure everything's safe and away from it, and I've almost never left one burning overnight.
So what do? You snuff it out and relight it the next day to continue the spell, or just let the candle burn out on
it depends on the it depends on the spell.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not much into magic. Someday I wish, and I've said this many a times before, I wish somebody would do a spell with me. And I want to see it work, but it's never been done. Everybody's told me it's a personal thing, and something simple.
Well, it is. It's quite personal. You might, if we did something together, for example, you might not get the same results as I get. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it kind of does. I don't know how that is if you're doing the same things. And I've been told many a times my Christian beliefs is what's blocking me from doing magic. However, if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, I don't know how the Christian belief is blocking it. I am Christian, but I'm I'm very open-minded. I'm closed-minded on the things I should be closed-minded on, and open on the things I should be open on. Mm-hmm. Religion is, we're all going to stand before God, and whatever his decision is his decision. So, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He could let Hitler in heaven. I've said this many times. He could let Hitler in heaven and tell us all we're sinners. Or he could tell everybody, forget it. None of you are getting in. I'm fed up with all of you. It doesn't, there's only one way to find out. I'm certainly not. There's one way to find out. I'm certainly not going to do it. So, with that being said, magic is for me, a very touchy subject, because I've never seen it happen. However, my skepticism, I guess that's what keeps me plugging in on it, is I want to know, I want to see, I want to learn, I want to know how this stuff works. And then another side of me says that could be very dangerous, you know. If I did something wrong or asked for something that shouldn't have happened, or, you know. But get with me on Facebook about the paranormal investigations. I would love to help somebody in the field. I'm still in the field. I'm in the field part-time. I'm about 25% now with the work schedule and the podcast and everything. But it's been a great discussion. I've learned a lot. I've learned more than I knew before, and I'm kind of interested in a lot more now.
It's easy to do. It's we're here.
And if anybody has any questions, they could probably write to me, CWLAWRENCE01@gmail.com, or my website, www.iambrotherwade.com, and I'll be glad to pass the info over to her. And then you can get in touch with her that way as well if you're wanting to have more information on being a Druid, or having some concerns, or wishing to take on this way of life for yourself. Now, it's been great having you on the show, and I hope everybody else has learned a lot. Thank you for coming on at last minute. Thank you.
I'd help you out if I could,
Yeah.
That's another thing about Druidism. We help out where we can.
Yeah, well, that's a lot of things I've found about Wiccan and Pagan and the Druid religions and the other things that are out there. Some of the people are nicer than the people I've met at church. I hate to say that,
well,
but that's kind of the way it is. I've met a lot of people who go to church that are not nice at all, and I've really met. I would agree. I think I've seen two people in my life that were Wiccan, that were not. I don't know if they weren't nice, but they just didn't like. They just didn't want to talk about it, and they didn't like it that I was interested in it, for whatever reason. Now, that could have been just them. There's probably a bad apple in every bunch. But
yeah,
that's only been two.
Unfortunately so.
That's only been two people. And fortunately, I don't have to deal with them on a constant basis. So I'm kind of puzzled on why I was treated that way. But I guess I was told I was treated that way because a lot of people hold it, the spirituality behind it, and the way of life, they hold it very protectively. And if I'm not 100% willing to bow down and do it, then there's some people out there that are not willing to discuss stuff with you. And they're not willing to share their life with you. But I don't know. I think that's a bad way of looking at life, Somebody said, I want to know about being a Christian. I certainly would tell them about it. I certainly would be nice to them and let them make a decision on their own, rather than discouraging somebody. But it's been a great discussion. So, as always, folks, we're running down at the end of our show here. You can contact me at my email, CWLAWRENCE01@gmail.com. You can go up to my website at www.iambrotherwade.com. Our phone number on the show tonight and every night is 607-238-3816. Lisa, I thank you for being on the show again. Thank you for sharing your life with us tonight. And as always, folks, I will see you next time.